The moment I walked into my childhood home wearing my army dress blues, I knew someone was going to die tonight. But what I didn't know was that the person I was about to destroy had been planning my death for over 2 years. My name is Captain Maya Mitchell, and I'm standing in the grand foyer of the Mitchell family estate in Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts. The house smells exactly the same as it did 15 years ago. Old money, polished mahogany, and my stepmother's suffocating French perfume. But tonight something else lingers in the air. Something that makes my skin crawl. The unmistakable scent of fear. I adjust the silver star on my uniform, my bronze star for valor, earned in the mountains of Afghanistan when I saved 12 lives during a Taliban ambush. The weight of it feels different tonight. Heavier. Because tonight it's not just a medal. It's ammunition. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 8 times, each sound echoing through the marble corridors like a funeral bell. Right on schedule. I hear footsteps descending the curved staircase, the click of expensive heels on Italian marble. She appears like a vision in cream silk, perfectly coiffed blonde hair swept into an elegant chignon, diamonds glittering at her throat. Victoria Mitchell. My stepmother. The woman who buried my father 6 months ago and somehow managed to inherit everything that should have been mine. Maya, darling, she purrs, her voice dripping with fake warmth. How wonderful that you could make it home for the reading of your father's updated will. Updated will. Those 2 words hit me like shrapnel. Because 3 days ago, I received a call from the family lawyer informing me that my father had apparently rewritten his will just weeks before his death, leaving everything, the estate, the fortune, the family business worth $60 million, to Victoria. Everything except a small trust fund. A consolation prize. An insult wrapped in legal language. But Victoria doesn't know what I know. She doesn't know that I've spent the last 72 hours digging through 15 years of buried secrets. She doesn't know that I have a flash drive in my jacket pocket containing evidence that will destroy not just her, but everyone who helped her orchestrate the perfect crime. And she certainly doesn't know that her beloved stepson John, my half-brother, the golden boy she always protected, is upstairs in his childhood bedroom, bound and gagged, with a very interesting story to tell about what really happened the night our father died. Hello, Victoria, I say, my voice steady as granite. We need to talk. Her smile falters for just a fraction of a second. Just long enough for me to see the flicker of something dark behind those perfectly made-up eyes. Fear? Guilt? Or maybe just the recognition that her perfect little world is about to come crashing down. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why I'm standing here in my father's house, wearing my dress uniform like armor, you need to know how a war hero became a woman with nothing left to lose. You need to understand what they took from me and what I'm about to take back. It started long before my father died. It started 15 years ago when I was 18 years old and stupid enough to believe that family meant something. The day I announced I was enlisting in the army was the day my family declared war on me. I can still picture that dinner scene with perfect clarity. We were sitting in the formal dining room, the one with the crystal chandelier that cost more than most people's cars and the oil paintings of long-dead Mitchells staring down at us with disapproving eyes. The mahogany table was set for 4. My father Robert Mitchell at the head, Victoria to his right in her usual spot of honor, my 16-year-old half-brother John across from me, and me at the foot of the table where I'd always sat. The outsider's seat. I had rehearsed my speech for weeks. I was going to be dignified, mature, respectful. I was going to explain my decision like an adult. Instead, the words tumbled out of my mouth like a confession. I enlisted in the army. I ship out to basic training in 3 weeks. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's fork froze halfway to his mouth. A piece of Victoria's perfectly prepared beef Wellington balanced on the tines. Victoria's hand flew to her throat, clutching her pearls like a lifeline. And John, sweet, spoiled John, actually started laughing. Are you serious? He snorted, not even bothering to swallow his food before speaking. Maya the soldier? Come on. You can barely handle boarding school. But it was my father's reaction that cut the deepest. He set down his fork with deliberate precision, the small clink of sterling silver against fine china somehow more ominous than if he had slammed it down. He looked at me with the same expression he wore during board meetings when someone had deeply disappointed him. Maya, he said, his voice low and controlled. We do not discuss family matters at the dinner table. We will continue this conversation in my study after dessert. Family matters. As if my life, my future, my dreams were nothing more than a business transaction to be handled behind closed doors. Victoria, ever the peacekeeper, tried to smooth things over. "Sweetheart," she said, reaching across the table to pat my hand with her perfectly manicured fingers. "I'm sure this is just a phase. All young people go through periods of rebellion. But the army? That's so dangerous. And dirty. What would people think? What would people think? Not what would make you happy, or what are your dreams. Just the eternal Mitchell family concern about appearances. About maintaining the perfect facade that had been carefully constructed over generations." That night in my father's study, surrounded by leather-bound books and the portraits of my ancestors, men who had built the Mitchell shipping empire from nothing, I learned exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy. "You are my daughter," my father said, not looking up from the papers scattered across his antique desk. "You carry the Mitchell name. That comes with responsibilities, expectations. The army is not suitable for a young woman of your position. As if being born into wealth was some kind of achievement instead of pure chance. "What about Great-Uncle Thomas?" I asked, gesturing to a faded photograph on the mantel. "He served in World War II. You've always said he was a hero." My father finally looked up, his pale blue eyes cold as winter ice. "Thomas was a man. Men serve their country in times of war. Women of our class serve their families and their communities through charitable work and appropriate marriages. Victoria has already spoken to several suitable young men. I'm 18 years old." The words exploded out of me before I could stop them. "I don't want to marry some trust fund baby and spend my life planning charity galas." "You will lower your voice in this house," my father commanded, standing up from his chair. All 6 feet and 3 inches of him towered over me, just as he had when I was a child caught misbehaving. "And you will not disgrace this family by running off to play soldier with the children of plumbers and mechanics." Children of plumbers and mechanics. The contempt in his voice was unmistakable. These were the people I would die for, kill for, bleed alongside in the mountains of Afghanistan and the deserts of Iraq. But to my father they were beneath our notice. "I've already signed the papers," I said quietly. "It's done." The silence stretched between us like a chasm. When he finally spoke, his words were measured, final. "Then you have made your choice. But understand this, Maya. If you walk out that door in 3 weeks, if you choose this path, you will do it without the Mitchell family name protecting you. You will do it without our financial support. And you will do it knowing that when you fail, and you will fail, there may not be a place for you to come home to." I looked at him standing there in his expensive suit, surrounded by the trappings of inherited wealth, and I felt something inside me break. Not my resolve, that only grew stronger. What broke was the last naive hope I'd been carrying that my father might actually be proud of me for wanting to serve something bigger than myself. "I understand," I said and walked toward the door. "Why?" His voice stopped me at the threshold. When I turned back, I saw something in his expression that might have been regret. Or maybe just disappointment that his daughter had turned out to be such a failure of his expectations. "The offer stands until you ship out. You can still change your mind." I could have. I should have seen it for what it was, a father's clumsy attempt to keep his daughter safe, even if he couldn't understand her choices. But I was 18 and angry and hurt, and all I could hear was the ultimatum. Choose them or choose myself. Choose their version of my life or forge my own path. "Goodbye, Dad," I said and walked out of his study for what I thought would be the last time. I was wrong about that. I would see him again 15 years later in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and impending death. But by then, it would be too late for the conversations we should have had, the understanding we should have reached. By then, Victoria would have spent 15 years poisoning whatever relationship we might have salvaged. But that night, walking up the grand staircase to my childhood bedroom, I felt something I had never experienced before in that house. Freedom. In 3 weeks, I would leave Martha's Vineyard behind and become someone new. Someone who earned her place through merit instead of inheritance, through courage instead of connections. I thought I was escaping my family's manipulation. I had no idea I was walking directly into a trap that had been set long before I was born. The army saved my life in ways I'm still discovering, but it also taught me something that would prove invaluable 15 years later. how to be invisible when you need to be, and how to strike when your enemy least expects it. Basic training at Fort Benning was hell, but it was a clean kind of hell. Unlike the subtle psychological warfare of growing up in the Mitchell house, the drill sergeant's brutality was honest. When Staff Sergeant Rodriguez screamed at me for dropping my rifle during a drill, I knew exactly where I stood. When I had to do push-ups until my arms shook with exhaustion, I knew what I had done wrong and how to fix it. There were rules, clear expectations, and a path forward that depended entirely on my own effort and determination. For the first time in my life, my success wasn't determined by my last name or my stepmother's approval or my half-brother's achievements. It was just me, my rifle, and the will to become something more than Robert Mitchell's disappointing daughter. I excelled in ways that surprised everyone, including myself. I could shoot straighter than men twice my size. I could carry a full pack through 20-mile hikes without complaint. I could navigate by the stars and survive on nothing but MREs and rainwater. Most importantly, I could lead. When other soldiers looked to me for guidance in the chaos of training exercises, I discovered something that had been buried under years of family criticism. I was good at this. Not just good, I was exceptional. My first deployment to Afghanistan came 2 years later, when I was a freshly minted second lieutenant with everything to prove. The mountains of Kunar province became my second home, the soldiers under my command my second family. These were Victoria's children of plumbers and mechanics, and they were the finest people I had ever known. Sergeant First Class Maria Santos, whose father really was a plumber and who could disarm an IED with hands steady as a surgeon's. Private First Class David Chin, whose mother worked double shifts at a textile factory to put him through high school, and who had a gift for languages that made him invaluable when dealing with local Afghan interpreters. Corporal James Washington from the south side of Chicago, who could make anyone laugh even when we were pinned down by Taliban fire. They didn't care that I came from money. They didn't care about my family's shipping empire or my trust fund. They cared that I could make the right decisions under fire, that I would never ask them to take a risk I wouldn't take myself, and that I would move heaven and earth to bring them home alive. The night I earned my Bronze Star, we were returning from a routine patrol when our convoy hit an improvised explosive device. The blast flipped our lead Humvee and left 3 soldiers trapped under burning metal while Taliban fighters opened fire from the ridgeline above us. Standard protocol was to call for backup and wait for air support. But Corporal Washington was in that overturned vehicle and I could hear him screaming. I made a choice that night that defined who I was becoming. Instead of taking cover, I ran toward the burning wreckage. I pulled Washington and 2 other soldiers to safety while bullets cracked past my head like deadly insects. Then I organized a counterattack that drove off the Taliban fighters and secured the area for medevac helicopters. Later, when the medal was pinned to my chest in a ceremony at Bugram Air Base, I thought about calling my father. I thought about sending him a photo, proving that his daughter wasn't a failure after all. But every time I reached for the phone, I remembered his words. You will do it knowing that when you fail, and you will fail, there may not be a place for you to come home to. So I didn't call. I kept my victories to myself, building a new identity brick by brick, mission by mission. Captain Maya Mitchell of the United States Army, a woman who had earned every rank, every commendation, every moment of respect through her own blood and sweat and determination. I served 3 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq. I lost soldiers who were like brothers and sisters to me. I made decisions that saved lives and decisions that haunted my dreams. I learned to carry the weight of command and the burden of responsibility. And through it all, I told myself that I had left my old life behind completely. Her hands tremble slightly as she reaches for her water glass. I don't know what you think you found, but I found the truth about the insulin overdose that caused his final heart attack. I found the truth about the forged will. And I found the truth about why you started planning this the moment I came home. Victoria stands up abruptly, moving toward the window. You don't understand the situation you're in, Maya. You're making very dangerous allegations against people who can destroy you. Like you destroyed him? She whirls around and for the first time I see the real Victoria. Not the grieving widow or the concerned stepmother, but the cold, calculating woman who spent 15 years systematically alienating a daughter from her father, then murdered him when that daughter threatened to return to the family fold. Your father was going to change everything, she says, her voice sharp as broken glass. He was going to give you controlling interest in the company. He was going to make you his heir. After everything I sacrificed for this family, After everything I gave up to make him happy, he was going to hand it all over to his war hero daughter who couldn't even be bothered to come home for 15 years. So you killed him. I saved this family from financial ruin, she shouts, abandoning all pretense. Do you have any idea what your father's sentimental decisions would have cost us? You know nothing about running a business, nothing about the responsibilities that come with wealth. You would have destroyed everything we built. You married into this family, Victoria. You didn't build anything. I built everything that mattered. I raised John. I maintained the social connections that keep the business profitable. I protected this family's reputation while you were off playing soldier in some godforsaken desert. I stand up slowly, my hand instinctively moving to the service weapon I'm not carrying. Old habits. Where is John? Her eyes dart toward the ceiling. He's not here. He's upstairs. In his childhood bedroom. We had a very interesting conversation earlier about his role in all this. About how he accessed Dad's computer to forge the will. About how he convinced that private nurse to increase the insulin dosage. About how you two planned this whole thing. Victoria sinks back into her chair, the fight suddenly gone out of her. You don't understand, she whispers. I loved your father. But he was going to destroy everything we worked for. Everything John deserved. John deserved to be a murderer's accomplice? John deserved his inheritance. He's the one who stayed. He's the one who took care of your father when you were nowhere to be found. He's the one who's about to spend the rest of his life in prison, I finish. Unless he cooperates with the FBI investigation that starts tomorrow morning. Victoria's face goes white. FBI. I pick up the flash drive and slip it back into my pocket. Did you really think I would handle this alone? Did you think I would just walk in here and confront you without backup? I'm not 18 anymore, Victoria. I'm not the naive girl you manipulated and drove away. I'm a United States Army captain who knows how to plan an operation. The grandfather clock chimes 9 times. Right on schedule. Special Agent Martinez should be arriving any moment with a search warrant. Agent Chin is already watching the back exits to make sure John doesn't try to run. And Agent Williams is currently downloading everything from your computer, including the email thread where you and your son planned my father's murder. Victoria stands up unsteadily, gripping the back of her chair for support. You can't do this. You can't destroy this family. This family destroyed itself the moment you put that needle in my father's arm. The sound of car doors slamming outside confirms that the cavalry has arrived. Through the window, I can see the black SUVs pulling into the circular driveway, their headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. Hiya, Victoria says, and for the first time since I've known her, she sounds genuinely desperate. Please. We can work something out. The will can be changed back. You can have everything. Just don't do this to John. He's just a boy. I convinced him. He's 28 years old and he made his choice when he decided to help you commit murder. The doorbell rings. Victoria flinches as if the sound physically hurt her. This is how it's going to work, I say, walking toward the foyer. You're going to cooperate fully with the investigation. You're going to confess to what you did. And maybe if you're lucky they'll take the death penalty off the table. I open the front door to find Special Agent Martinez, a woman about my age with kind eyes and steel in her spine. Behind her stand 3 other agents, all business in their dark suits. I open the front door to find Special Agent Martinez, a woman about my age with kind eyes and steel in her spine. Behind her stand 3 other agents, all business in their dark suits. Captain Mitchell, Agent Martinez says. Is everything secure? The suspects are contained. Victoria is in the sitting room, and John is upstairs in the 3rd bedroom on the right. As the agents file past me, I catch Victoria's arm. She looks up at me with eyes full of tears that might even be genuine. Why? She whispers. After everything, why did you come back? I think about my father's last words to me, spoken in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic and regret. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Because he asked me to come home, I say. And because you killed the only parent who ever told me he loved me. Agent Martinez approaches Victoria with handcuffs ready. Mrs. Victoria Mitchell, you're under arrest for the murder of Robert Mitchell. As the Miranda rights are read and Victoria is led away in handcuffs, I walk back into the sitting room and look around at the family photos on the mantel. The ones that now only show Victoria and John as if I had never existed. Tomorrow the newspapers will have a field day. The Mitchell family scandal will be front-page news from Martha's Vineyard to Boston. The shipping empire will probably survive, eventually under court-appointed management until the legal battles are resolved. But tonight, justice is finally served. I walk out of my childhood home for the second time in my life, but this time I'm not running away. This time I'm walking toward something new. Maybe law enforcement, maybe a consulting career helping other families navigate similar crises, maybe something I haven't even thought of yet. As I get into my rental car, I glance up at the third-floor window where I know John is being arrested. Part of me feels sorry for him. Part of me wonders if things could have been different if I had stayed in touch, if I had been there to counteract Victoria's influence. But mostly I feel peace. For the first time since my father's phone call 3 years ago, I feel like the daughter he raised me to be, not the society princess Victoria wanted me to become, but the woman who stands up for what's right no matter the cost. My phone buzzes with a text from Agent Martinez. Confession secured. Both suspects in custody. Thank you for your service, Captain. I smile as I drive away from the Mitchell estate for the last time. Thank you for my service indeed. Tonight I serve justice. Tomorrow I'll serve whatever comes next. After all, I'm a soldier. And soldiers always complete the mission. Epilogue. 6 months later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Boston, reading the morning news on my tablet. The headline catches my eye. Mitchell family matriarch sentenced to life without parole in husband's murder. The article is thorough, detailing Victoria's confession, John's plea bargain, and the complex web of financial fraud that surrounded my father's death. There's a small photo of me in my dress uniform with a caption identifying me as the Army captain whose investigation broke the case open. I close the tablet and look out the window at the busy street. Life has moved on as it always does. The Mitchell Shipping Company was sold to pay for legal fees and victim compensation. The Martha's Vineyard estate is on the market. The family legacy that meant so much to my father has been reduced to a cautionary tale about greed and betrayal. But some things endure. On my desk at my new job, I did decide to join the FBI after all, sits a framed photo of my father and me taken during those last 6 months of his life. We're both smiling, both finally understanding each other after so many years of pain. Next to it sits another photo. Me and my army unit in Afghanistan, all of us covered in dust and grinning like fools after a successful mission. My real family, the one I chose and who chose me in return. I've learned that family isn't just about blood or money or names passed down through generations. It's about loyalty, honor, and the willingness to fight for what's right. Victoria never understood that. John unfortunately learned it too late. But I carry that lesson with me every day in every case I work, in every life I touch. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about becoming everything they said you could never be. And I am exactly who I was meant to be. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt silenced or betrayed by those who were supposed to protect you, please subscribe to Revenge Tempest. We share stories of justice, truth, and the courage it takes to fight back against corruption. Let me know in the comments where you found us. Your support means everything in this fight for accountability and justice.